Hi, Andrew. Thanks for joining us on
No
Why
worries.
I Built This. If you could just really quickly give me your elevator pitch for Active Apostle.
Cool. So Active Apostle is a sustainable activewear line, and we're basically based on three tenets that we stand by. The first being sustainably sourced materials. So our activewear is made from recycled fishing nets and carpet fibers. It's also the fact that we're ethically made. So we're the garments are made in a factory in Bali where the workers are paid a living wage and they're given healthcare and other employment benefits. And then the third is social impact. So what we want to do is we actually want to give back to the community. So one of the ways we're doing that initially is by working with an organization in Bali called Dark Bali. And what they do is that they help rehabilitate women and children who have been persecuted or been involved in the human trafficking or sex trade. So we work with them. Proceeds from the sale of our garments go towards that organization. So they're really the three tenets. But the underlying kind of message behind our brand is to empower a generation of apostles, which are really messengers, people that go out there with a message to live actively and live sustainably.
Yeah, wow, that's an incredible message. I personally didn't know that about the brand, so thank you. And so, why do you think you've gone down this road personally of paying a living wage and using sustainable fabrics? What does it mean to you personally?
Well, I think like when I think about my journey, I just became a bit more conscious of the way I was spending money. Like I used to spend a lot of money on clothes and sneakers, fashion, gadgets, various things like that, with no real consideration for the materials in those items, where they came from, who made them, and just over time I became a bit more exposed and more conscious of those things. Even something like our smartphones, we don't understand that a lot of the materials in that smartphone that you're using come from conflict areas overseas, and the means that people and groups go to actually mine for these minerals, things like that. So I just became more aware of that, and then that um, sparked that interest in fashion. I started looking into the supply chain and realized that all the fast fashion brands that I was shopping at, I was paying, $5, $6, $10 maybe for a t-shirt, and really impressed with myself at the fact that I got this amazing bargain and it's a nice t-shirt that looks good on me. But yeah, like I said, I didn't know who was making that. And then after, Rana Plaza, that really brought the whole fast fashion, industry to the fore. And then people started looking into it. And I just realized there had to be a better way. So I always had that entrepreneurial streak, but, I wanted to start looking at creating a business which its sole purpose was actually to demonstrate that it's possible to build a profitable and successful business without exploiting the earth, its resources, and the people that work for you. So I started kind of looking at that. I was always passionate about, health and fitness. So activewear seemed to be, the road to go down. And so I did that. But it just was a gradual, consciousness about the where the things that I was buying, where they actually came from, that really sparked this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think many people would agree with you. Those $10 t-shirts, yeah, are so tempting until you dig a little bit deeper and you start to realize the impact that's having on other people's lives. That
Mm.
yeah, can just be incredibly devastating. I noted on your website that you talk about some brands putting profit before people. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, well, it's really a case of your number one focus being sales. Like if we look at fast fashion, the way it works in fast fashion is that you've got these really big brands out there, big fashion brands, and the reason that they can actually afford to sell, a t-shirt for $5 is because their business model is based on numbers, so they can actually bring down production values, amounts, and costs down to, pretty minimal in order to be able to sell that for $5. Because think about it. Common sense would tell you that if you are buying a t-shirt for $5, the cost of producing that t-shirt must have been less than $5, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense for the business to be operating in a growing, going concern.
Yeah.
So it had to be cheaper than the $5. Plus, consider all the other costs associated with that, having a retail store, marketing, this and that. It really brings down that production value. So they produce like millions of these garments every year. And because they order in such bulk, they can actually squeeze down the price. So the margins are really, really low for garment factories. So when you look at some of the garment factories overseas in China, Bangladesh, India, places like that, they're not really earning a lot of money. They're probably earning just enough to survive, if that. But in order to meet those production values, what happens is that they're working 16 hours a day. They're ignoring other health and safety issues such as fire escapes and other hazards that may exist in the building. When cracks appear in the building, they just ignore it. When people need breaks, again, they don't really adhere to certain kind of standards associated with employment and labor. So what I mean is that all these fast fashion brands are putting their profits before the welfare of the people that actually make their clothes, because they don't even know. Like you look at the fast fashion brand, that really big brand, with their executives sitting in their, ivory towers. They don't actually know who's making their clothes because they're so far detached from that process.
Yeah.
And all they know is that they want to produce a certain amount of clothes for the least amount of money so that they can sell it at a certain price. So they just squeeze these garment factories. And in doing that, there's a lot of other things that are neglected at the factory itself. Workers don't get breaks. They're working around the clock. They're getting abused and beaten at work. Real harrowing circumstances that these people find themselves in.
Do you think that there's a bit of a shift happening? People are becoming more aware of those circumstances in garment factories from your understanding?
Yeah, I definitely say that there is a shift that's taking place. And you even find that some of the larger fast fashion brands are doing their part to be a bit more sustainable and conscious. A lot of people would call that as greenwashing, trying to kind of, hide the fact that on the surface, it seems like they're doing their part. But, when you dig down deeper, it doesn't really seem like they're moving the needle that much when it comes to the exploitation of, workers and environmental practices and things like that. So there is a bit of a shift, and I think that shift has happened largely due in the fashion industry to post at Rana Plaza, because that's when the whole fashion transparency movement kind of came into effect. And, we had organizations, the Fashion Revolution, etc., that really advocating for change in fashion industry and calling on consumers like you and I to ask the question to the brands that we're buying from, well, who actually made our clothes? So it's certainly moving in the right direction, but whether or not it's fast enough, is a different story. Because what we found is that for the last 20 plus years, since most of these companies have started to manufacture offshore, we're so ingrained in these cheaper business models of manufacturing, and we've been doing that for so long that it's very hard to kind of come out of that cycle. And it's going to take some time before I feel we see a more rapid change.
True. I do feel like seeing brands such as yourself that are really advocating for a fair wage and also the work that you're doing in human trafficking and so on. Like, you're not just selling activewear, you're kind of empowering people and educating people and letting them know, like, hey, this is what has been happening in the past, and we've decided to produce our clothing in a particular way.
Mm.
So from the perspective of someone who's working for you, who's making your activewear, what is the impact on their life compared to working in somewhere that isn't paying them a fair wage? Can you give us a bit of an idea about that?
Yeah, so my factory is in Bali. And the workers there, they receive a living wage, so it's above the minimum wage. In some extent, depending on the person's position and tenure with the organization, it can be 2 to 3 times the actual minimum wage. They're also given, health benefits like medical care for themselves and their family, annual leave, adequate, breaks, during the day. It's also a factory. They have their own social, corporate social responsibility that they do. They adopt stray animals. They kind of give back to other organizations themselves. So, and I've seen that firsthand because I've been to the factory several times in Bali. You kind of walk in through the glass doors, and there'll be a few stray animals that you have to kind of step over to get to reception. A very unassuming place, nothing fancy, and then you walk down to the factory floor and you see all the workers, and there's adequate space for everyone. There's good lighting, and I've taken several videos of that actually and photos of that, posted it on my Instagram through stories. You might be able to see some of that on my highlights on Active Apostle Instagram. So it's a really great environment to work in. Doesn't feel very claustrophobic. There's, like I said, adequate space for the workers, and they all seem to be getting along and enjoying their work. I've sat down and had a chat with some of them as well, just to learn about, their lifestyle and, what they do. Some of them are from, poorer, lower socioeconomic backgrounds in Bali. Some of them may not be educated per se, after a certain level at school, but they all seem to enjoy their work, and many of them are the sole breadwinner for their families. So they'll kind of take that salary home and then use that for their daily living expenses, including that of their family. So it seems like the factory is doing their, utmost to make sure that not only are they given adequate benefits in terms of pay and leave and healthcare, but it's also like a nice environment, to work in. It's a place that you want to go to and work every day, see your colleagues. So
yeah, that's nice, and they feel valued because obviously they're doing a job that need not only get paid fairly, but to feel respected and valued as part of the chain, I guess, that becomes the end result of Active Apostle. So that's good to know. So let's talk a little bit about business. What do you think you wish you had have known when you first started out with Active Apostle?
Where do I start? Yeah, listen, there's a bunch of things. I think, so I don't have a background in fashion. I came from the kind of corporate tech sector. I was selling software, and while I'd been involved in other startups and had a couple of startups of my own, they were never in this space. So no fashion industry experience whatsoever, but I didn't want to let that kind of stop me. So I think there's a lot that I've been learning just about the supply chain, and how long certain things can take, which I never kind of understood in the, when I first started. For me to get the recycled fabric, it can often take a month or more to actually, after I purchase that fabric, to then have it sent to my factory in Bali. And then, understanding things like the production quotas of the factory, how they work. So there's a lot that I didn't know in terms of navigating the entire supply chain from the sourcing of the fabric all the way to end production, having all the inventory at my place and then selling it on. It's really just the whole manufacturing kind of process. Everything's new to me. Like I said, I don't have a background in this, so I didn't realize how long things took.
Yeah.
Sourcing the fabric, having the production done, how precise the processes are at the factory itself in terms of doing things. Like there have been a couple of times I've asked them, well, why can't we just put the stitching there, and can we change it so that some of the garments have this and other garments have this? And because everything is done in bulk, there's limitations on the way you actually manufacture items as well. So everything's really been a complete kind of learning experience for me.
Yeah.
So it probably would have, helped having some kind of insight into that. But, learning along the way as well, it's not something I kind of regret doing. I don't have any regrets going into this, even without the experience. But yeah, it certainly would have been handy to have a bit more prior kind of inside industry knowledge about, fashion.
Yeah. Well, you certainly threw yourself in the deep end with not knowing anything about fashion or manufacturing, and then adding the extra things of, wanting to be sustainable and ethical, and they're sort of challenges in their own, I guess, as well. It's not as straightforward as going to a factory in China and saying, I want, this many pairs of tights or whatever. You obviously had your ethics very front of mind throughout the whole process.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was also, in fact, I probably spent close to about a year prior to launching just on research. So when I first started the idea, or the concept, I should say, I started researching fabrics, which was the most sustainable. I was looking at organic fabrics like bamboo and various things like that. And then weighing up the pros and cons of looking at all these different fabrics, how they're actually sourced, what countries are they sourced from, different types of accreditation. So I spent a lot of time just researching. And then in the end, I felt like at the moment, I think using recycled materials was probably the way to go. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. It is definitely a minefield looking at all the different fabrics. And, bamboo's great, but does it use too much water? Or organic cotton, same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it is challenging. So it's good to know that you've done all the hard work, done all the research, so we can just trust that you've made the best decision for the brand at this time, which is good. Tell us, Andrew, what are you curious about right now?
In terms of fashion or
anything?
Because I think everybody's curious about the coronavirus and how long that's going to impact our lives. Let me just say it has actually affected us as a small business, but also in terms of our supply chain. So our factory in Bali, they've had to take, kind of precautions about the number of people in the factory. It was already, it wasn't a congested environment. Workers had their space, but they've had to kind of reduce that. A lot of the seamstresses are working from home now with, sewing machines that have been provided by the actual factory itself, and only, I believe, the heat press people and a couple of the other roles are still in the factory. So they've had to kind of take portions themselves.
Yeah, so the factory has set them up so these women can still continue to earn money.
Yeah, that's right. They're just doing it from the comfort of their own home with a sewing machine. And it's basically to minimize contact with, other people, adhere to social distancing, rules that we've been hearing about so much in the is I had planned a trip to Bali next month actually to go to the factory again and to do some stories with some of the workers actually.
All right.
And that was the primary purpose of going to Bali, to meet some of them again, do a bit of an interview with them so you could hear more about their lives. That trip obviously got canned, and even having someone from Bali do it themselves on my behalf is proving to be quite difficult as well, because their outsiders aren't allowed in the factory anymore, and just because of all the social distancing and what's going on, yeah, it's practically, impossible. I had a photo shoot this weekend for the brand. Now with two people or less allowed in public spaces, we can't do that. It's just impacted us in so many ways, I would say. And there are so many things that I want to do while people are in their homes and having to work out. I'm actually wearing my Active Apostle tank top at the moment.
Yeah.
I just, prior to this call, I had just finished running up and down the stairs in my apartment building,
Yeah. Right.
because none of the gyms are open. Got to exercise somehow. So I've got a yoga mat plus a couple of weights in my living room, and then ran up and down the stairs. So people are indoors and they want to work out. Activewear is still a requirement when you work
Yeah.
out to be comfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I just have such limited options in terms of marketing that, because I haven't been able to kind of conduct some of these things. So yeah, going back to your original question, Jess, I'm definitely curious about how long a lot of these restrictions are going to last in this current environment, and how it's going to affect small businesses, like ours, because I think there's a lot of anxiety at the moment. And one of the reasons why we're talking more about, mental health now as well, which is really important. But yeah, I just want to kind of see how that's going to affect our business in the long term, and what we can do in that regard. But specifically referring to fashion, I'm curious about other sustainable materials that are coming to light as well. We've seen plastic bottles, so I'm actually testing out a like an activewear set made from plastic bottles. This fabric is really soft and smooth. Like, you wouldn't believe that this used to be like plastic bottles that we drink out of.
Yeah. Brilliant. I feel like people are treating themselves to a new outfit, and the only clothes really that people are wearing now is activewear or pajamas. So yeah, 100%. This is the time. This is your time to shine, I think.
Exactly.
That's
So I'm
amazing.
really curious about other recycled materials and eco-friendly fabrics that are coming to light, whether they're like a nylon, like a recycled nylon, something like this,
Yeah.
or polyester, I should say, or whether it's bamboo or any other kind of eco-friendly fabric. I'm really curious as to see what we can kind of do there. Hemp is another one. Suitability for active wear, not really sure about that yet, but curious to see what's going to happen in that space in terms of active wear. So
Yeah.
yeah, but we're doing our part, testing various fabrics that we're interested in. So hopefully we'll have a few more options in the future with the new collection. So we're
Cool.
looking into it.
Cool. So what with that fabric, is it breathable and comfortable? And you think plastic bottles, and you're like, oh, it's a very hard product, obviously.
Yeah.
But clearly, you've done your research, and turning it into activewear just completely changes the dynamic of the plastic. How does that work?
Yeah. So I know it's strange. The technology is like really advanced. The ones of our suppliers that actually regenerate a fishing net into a fabric, or a plastic bottle into a fabric, like it goes through this whole process. But in terms of its performance as an active wear set, it's
Mm.
great. So every time I test out one of the different fabrics, I have ambassadors and influencers wear it, and they give it, a really good workout. They put it through its paces. They're squatting in it. They're jumping on boxes. They're, running through forests and running on the beach, and they wash it a number of times.
Yeah.
They sweat in it. They do all sorts of things in it, and they test it for things like, does it support them in the right areas where you need that? Does it have, features like a pocket so that you can put your, phone in it, or your keys? Is it breathable? Does it feel good, or does it feel really hot and kind of sticky? And does it look good? People, want things that perform well, but it also has to look good, has to be stylish. So I have all this criteria that a fabric has to kind of check off before I go, hey, I'm happy to kind of, go ahead and produce in bulk for that particular fabric. So there's months of testing that goes on, and I have those people to test it out. So yeah, so currently all the activewear that we sell online, it's super light, it's super durable. It's pretty much the only activewear that I wear now. And everyone who's bought my activewear, everyone says that I cannot believe this used to be a fishing net.
Yeah, it's just, it's amazing because they look so soft. That the pink pair that you showed, they look so comfortable.
It's
and yeah,
really soft and comfortable and breathable, and just performs really well for, pretty much anything. So
yeah, the home athlete.
Yeah, that's right. I see a lot of home athletes nowadays.
Yeah, the home exerciser. All right, one last question about the business. Can you tell us something that you've failed at?
Good question. I wouldn't say that there has been any major kind of failures that I felt were really pivotal in, moving forward with the actual brand. For example, picking a fabric that everyone found, oh, it just really sucked, and there were a lot of bad reviews or anything like that. So I wouldn't say there's been anything that has been really major, anything really significant. I'd say it's just a lot of the smaller mistakes that I probably made. Perhaps I could have been a bit more patient with people that fabric suppliers and the factory, or maybe when there's miscommunication about something, and that does happen. It's not an entirely smooth process, and I certainly don't want to kind of give off that feeling that everything's all hunky dory. There's times where things are lost in translation, and miscommunication occurs, and whatnot. So I think this whole business has taught me to be a bit more patient, and also to improve my cross-cultural communication. My factory's overseas, understanding that, and my dealings with the people in the factory there, who are all local Indonesian people. Just being really empathetic towards that communication that they have. They're doing their best to speak to me in a language that isn't their native tongue. So I feel like there are times where I could be a bit more understanding of that, but it has taught me to improve my, as I said, cross-cultural communication, and it's also given me a sense of curiosity about those people that work for me as well. So when I have gone to Bali to visit them and speak to people, and the people that work in the factory, all the factory workers, most of them anyway, are pretty shy. So when they're approached by a foreigner in conversation, they're not always very forthcoming or with that conversation, because they're somewhat reserved. But just speaking to some of them and learning about their lives, and it just shows that there's a human behind that whole kind of manufacturing process. Because at the end of the day, while I'm selling activewear online, this isn't just a product business that focuses solely on the product. And I want to build a business that focuses on the people behind the product as well. So getting to kind of know them, and that's been key for me. And I think there are a lot of things that I've learned, and small things that I could have done better in terms of like I said, a lot of that kind of communication, maybe even making a decision here and there a bit quicker. I feel like I probably gotten to the point where I'd wanted it to be so perfect and so right that it's prevented me from pulling the trigger on certain things
Yeah.
quicker than I should have. Even in terms of testing out these plastic bottles, that has been in the pipeline for months, and I feel like if I just said, listen, just go ahead and test it out, see what you feel,
Mm.
and then deal with it after. But I didn't actually do that. I was just thinking about, getting to a point of analysis paralysis with that decision and so many other decisions where I feel like, listen, just put your trust in the fact that it is going to work out and go ahead. Don't get bogged down on small details. So it's just some of the little things that I feel like I could have done better at. But, whether or not I consider them a failure is a different story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely sounds like learnings. And I think, especially during this time, that's something that we could all probably take on board a little bit: patience and communication and kindness and all those kind of values that I can imagine would be challenging when dealing with another country, but also relating it back to, us being stuck in our homes. It's kind of relevant for these times as well. When we're not seeing
100%.
each other face to face, we're only communicating online, and yeah, it definitely is time for patience, for sure. Let's wrap this up quickly. Can you tell us what your day-to-day is like now, post coronavirus isolation?
Yeah, it's certainly different. There's a lot of time that I'm spending at home, social interactions that I've had to, refrain from going to. But a lot of my time now is spent at home trying to figure out the next steps of the business, doing a lot of planning for Active Apostle, doing what I can via emails, phone calls, Zoom calls. And so doing a lot of that. And because I trained clients as well as a PT, a lot of that has kind of dried up at the moment. So I'm trying to figure out next steps for the fitness business as well. Because my idea was to kind of marry both the activewear and the fitness, at some point, down in the future with, other grand plans. But yeah, both have taken a massive hit. So it's that time to kind of do a bit more strategy, strategize as to how I move forward with this, recoup, and then, come out stronger from the end. So it involves a lot of planning, sitting at my computer and reaching out to people, virtually, trying to plan for the next step and what that actually looks like. And of course, doing my best to work out at home every day, because if I didn't, I think I'd go a little insane.
I'd imagine that you would have been or you probably still are, an early riser, that type of person that's like up and at 'em, out the door, training first thing in the morning. Are you still managing to do that?
Listen, I'll be honest, I've been a little slacker than previously, than probably a bit more than a week ago, when everything in the economy seemed to come crashing down about a week ago. But I mean, that's always been a mantra of mine, to kind of start as early as possible in the morning, have a workout and have some alone time, then have breakfast and move on with my day. So I'm trying to get back into that, because it has been I have been a little slack over the last week, just, probably feeling a little down from everything that is going on, if I'm going to be completely honest. But as they say, as cliche as it is, tough times don't last, tough people do. So you've just got to keep going.
Yeah.
So,
well, you'll have to start recording some workouts on the Active Apostle IGTV so we can tune in.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing that.
And so tell us, anyone who would like to purchase Active Apostle, where can they get it?
Yeah, so you can just go to our website. It's activeapostle.com, and we've got an activewear range for men and women. And it's important to say for men too, because you find that a lot of the brands out there at the moment that are doing something sustainably or, with activewear, it's mainly focused on women. But for men, we've got a tank top, a t-shirt, and we've also got a pair of shorts, which I'm also wearing. And for ladies, we've got leggings, a sports bra, and also a t-shirt. Just go to our website, activeapostle.com, and you'll see the entire range. And also check out our Instagram at Active Apostle. There's more information about some new colors. So we've just launched 2 new colors. We don't have names for those colors yet. So
Ah,
um, still
maybe
looking
you need to run
for,
a competition.
yeah, thinking about running a competition. But the first set of colors that we have for our activewear, that's all based on Australian animals. So we've got like our grey is called the stingray. Then we've got the black, which is called the devil. So after the Tasmanian devil. We've got a white, which is called wallaby. We've got a blue, which is called octopus after the blue ringed octopus.
Yeah.
And then we've got a lizard for a darker blue, similar to, well, named after the blue tongue lizard. So all our colors at the moment are kind of, named after those, Australian,
Yeah.
wildlife. So
That's cool.
trying to think of some names for the 2 new colors that we're launching.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll try and run a competition, but you'll find information about that at our on our Instagram at Active Apostle.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Andrew.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot for the call.
Yeah, no, thanks for your time.